Selecting in Photoshop, the pen tool. The pen tool can be used to make paths around the subject, and it's one of the most useful tools for selecting in Photoshop. We'll start with a little exercise to select this oval shape. Now we choose the pen tool, the first one in the list of 5 options here, and we click on the edge once, and then we move to a new point and click again. Now, in fact, what we're going to do, there's a little cog symbol in the options bar. Click on that and check the rubber band box. That enables us to see the line as we're dragging it along. So now we click on the next point and we keep the cursor pressed down and drag it sideways, so the line, you see how the line moves? We adjust it so it's around the edge that we're selecting. And then we move along and click again. You have to move it up and down and drag it in and out to get it just where you want. Now we go around the side, same thing. It doesn't have to be perfect yet because we can make adjustments later. When you're going round a circle or an oval shape, you don't want too many clicks, otherwise you can get a kink around the different anchor points. But then again, you want enough to give you a good selection. Carry on around here, drag the anchor pointer sideways, nearly finished, there. And when we get to the beginning, the cursor changes to a little circle and they link up. Now we want to make some adjustments just to tidy it up. Firstly, we enlarge the image with Control equal or Command equal and move it around. Now here are 2 selection tools. The first one, which is in black, will select all the anchor points. If we click on the line, see all the anchor points are selected. But at the moment we don't want that. We want the other one, which is the direct selection tool, and that will just select one at a time. There. Now we can adjust the line with these handles. This one too. We can move that down a bit, it's not quite on the edge. Best to use the keys, the arrow keys on the keyboard. That's quite good. Along here, let's check this one. Adjust this one down a bit. We can work our way around the oval, adjusting each handle. They can be extended as well as pulled up and down. If the anchor point isn't quite on the proper line, the arrow keys will move it 1 pixel at a time. Extend this handle here. Now you've got to watch it doesn't, you see, if I move this handle, it affects the line there, but it's also destroying our selection there. So we'll fix this one first. If I hold down the Alt key and press on this handle, then it isolates this side. So moving this handle doesn't affect the other side anymore by holding down the Alt key. Around here, that's quite good. And it could do with a little too much. No, that's pretty good. So there's our selection. Now in the path panel, if we look on the panel, there we see the path. It's called a work path. So that object is ready for isolating from the background. At the bottom of the path panel, one of these buttons says load path as a selection. So we click on that and there we've got our selection. We can put that on a new layer by going Control J or Command J, and you see it in the layers panel separated from its original background. Well, that's our start. Next we'll do a more complicated object. Now the purpose of this crazy shape is just to illustrate a few more features. So we'll pick the pen tool and start going round. I'm going to start at this corner, straight line, click. We'll have to do this in 2 anyway. It's the first one. Now that's not given us a suitable curve, so we can disconnect the curve from the last anchor point by holding down the Alt key and clicking on that anchor point. And then we get a new rubber band line where we can position it the way we want. Drag the handle out to line the path up with the object, and we have to do it again here You see, we can't go around that corner without holding down the Alt key and clicking on the anchor point. Now we can do a straight line in a different direction. We're going to go around this curved area, lining it up the best we can. And once again, we have to disconnect the rubber band from that anchor point and start a new one. Drag the handle out, and again, disconnect with the Alt key, straight line there. Now around this large curve. This time we should be okay. We can just carry on. And again round this curve. One more. We need to disconnect that because we're not going to get an accurate placing of the line. So hold down the Alt key, click on the anchor point, and now we can join up with the first anchor point, and there's our path. Now we've got to make some adjustments there. I'm going to click on the direct selection tool. Let's see how we go. That first curve's okay, the second one's okay, and that's okay. This one isn't all that accurate, so we can adjust that. Well, we can't get a good placing of the line around the object with this just one handle. So what I'm going to have to do is get it the best I can and add an extra anchor point. In the pen menu, there's an add anchor point tool. It's got the pen with a little plus on it. Now I can click on the line that adds in a new anchor point, and it gives me some handles where I can adjust the line in the middle. There we are. That's got that line up against the edge. Now around this side, the same thing applies. We need an extra anchor point. So the curve is okay here. Actually, no, that one's worked all right. So we don't need an extra anchor point there. Let's go around this side. This handle's a bit off the screen. I can just reach it. That's all right on the left. Now I have to hold down the Alt key as I move this handle so it doesn't interfere with what we've done already. Adjust that. Good. Same here. Hold down the Alt key to adjust this left side without interfering with the right side of this anchor point. One more. That one looks quite good. And the last one looks good. There we are. We've got our neat path. Now in the path panel, there's the path on display. If you want to switch it off, just click on the blank area of the panel and it disappears. Switch it on again, click on that section, and the path is back in view. If you need to make an extra path without losing the first one, go to the bottom of the path panel, and there it says create new path with this symbol. Click on that, and there's a new path already named as path 1, and you can start making a new path somewhere else in the picture. In some versions of Photoshop, you will need to go to the drop-down menu in the Paths panel to make a new path. We can here. New path 2, you can add a third path, and so on. I'll just get rid of that. Go back to this path. Anchor points can be deleted as well. Let's just make it bigger. Now in the Path section, delete Anchor Path tool. Click on one of the anchor points and it disappears. Click on another one and that disappears. Add an anchor point with the plus tool and move it around like any other anchor point. They can also be changed to a corner with the Convert Point tool. Click on that anchor point and it changes to a corner. Same here. This sort of subject is ideal for the pen tool. There's straight lines, curves, a few sort of kinky bits, and it can all be done very quickly with the functions we've covered already in this tutorial. With the path active, we can turn it into a selection either by using this symbol at the bottom of the panel, or a shortcut is Control Return or Command Return. And there we've got our marching ants around our subject, and we can put it onto a new layer. We'll give it a little feather, select, modify, feather, just one will do, and Control J or Command J puts it onto a new layer. We can cover the original background with white, fill that in, and there we've got our vehicle onto a new background. Next we'll deal with an open path. What we've been doing so far is a closed path where it goes around in a full circle and joins up with the beginning. An open path is more like a straight or a curved line. We'll use an open path to draw a mouth on this stupid face, and for that we need the standard pen tool, which again is the first one in the list of 5. Click a starting point and an end point and drag out the handle to give us our shape. To cut off the path, hold down the Control key on a PC and the Command key on a Mac and click, and that's our path, an open path where the end doesn't join up with the beginning. We can move it around, choose the Path Selection tool and just click on it, and then we can move it up and down and sideways. If we want to adjust the shape, use the Direct Selection tool and click on one of the handles, so we can move that in a bit, make it a bit deeper, a deeper smile. There we are. I'll move it over a little bit to the left, just about central. Now we want to give it some colour, and for that we can stroke it with the brush tool. We have the brush set first, and for colour we'll have something silly really. Let's have a big mauve mouth, and that at the moment is the size of the brush, so I'll reduce that a little bit, and in the path panel one of these buttons will brush the path, stroke path with brush. Click on that, bang, the brush automatically goes all the way over the path, and that's it. That's how to make an open path. We'll try it again on something else. What we're going to do is make an open path and then paint over it with all these little question marks. We'll start by drawing our question mark with the pen tool, one here around the circle, another one there, and the line at the bottom. Again, hold down the Control or the Command key and click to finish the open path, but it's not all that smooth, so we have to adjust it with the Direct Selection tool. Let's make this one a bit more round there. That can come down a bit. This one's got a bit of a kink in it. Lower it there. Let's see. Oh, that's better. Now we're going to use the brush to add our small question marks. So we have to make a brush. We need a new file, Control N or Command N. We don't need anything this big, so I'll make it 170. Now we need the Type tool, and I'm going to use letter Gothic, bold, and try a size of 48. Now we type in a question mark. To save that as a brush, we flatten it first via the Layers panel. Click on the small arrow and drop down to Flatten Image. Now we want the rectangular marquee tool to draw around it. Now we need to turn that into a brush, so we go to Edit, drop down to Define Brush Preset, and we'll call it Question 1. OK. Back to our main image. We select the brush tool, and from the brush panel we find our query. Now at the moment the spacing is at 25%, and that's far too close, so we're going to open that up to something like 150, try 150%, and in the Paths panel at the bottom we click on the Stroke Path with Brush symbol. There we go. All those little question marks put over our question path. Now we need a full stop. This one's a bit small, so we're going to make another brush for the full stop, which is slightly bigger. Let's go back to our query mark. I'll delete that and fill it with white. Type tool again. This time I'm going to make it 72 point. Query mark, move it down, fine. We'll flatten that. Rectangular marquee tool to select that area. We go to Edit, Define Brush Preset, and this one is going to be question 2. OK. Brush tool again, brush panel, This time we're only going to click once, we're not going to stroke a path. So with the brush tool I can just click, and there we are. Switch off the path and there's our query covered with queries. There's one more tool left in the pen tool set, and that is the Freeform pen tool. I've never really used this on a photograph, but we'll cover it anyway. It'll draw a freehand line, drag it across, and then you get your line. It'll do any shape. It won't join up when you stop. That's all it does. I can't see any point in it in photography. Perhaps it's used by designers or illustrators. It can also be used magnetically. There's a box here, magnetic. Click on that and then it behaves rather differently. The magnetic pen tool is supposed to snap up against an edge with very little input from the user. We'll try it on this flower. Just make it a bit bigger. Put the tool on the first edge and you just drag it around and it snaps against the edge. Puts anchor points as it goes along, and so on all the way around. The trouble is, it doesn't work too well. It can do when there's a lot of contrast between the two edges like we have here. It does snap against the edge. But when you look more closely, you find their imperfections. Now there are some settings. I'll just stop that. There's some settings by this cog where we can adjust the width, the contrast and the frequency. The curve fit of 2 pixels means it'll be quite close to the edge. You wouldn't really want a high number there. Width and contrast also control how effective it is in different subjects. Just hover over a name for a description of its function. Frequency, if you have lots of fiddly bits in the image, go on to high frequency because you'll get more anchor points. See, the anchor points are quite frequent now. On this sort of subject it's not doing too badly because of the contrast between the yellow and the blue. But with this image here, it's not likely to work so well. Might be okay on this first part. It's not too bad. The red and the dark background give us a good edge. You can always click at certain points to make sure an anchor point is fitted into a corner. But down here, for example, it's rather different. It's dark, doing quite well. Let's go around here where it's even darker still. There's no way it's going to find a realistic edge in this sort of subject. So in total, it can be useful, but you have to be careful. When you've finished, enlarge the image and make all the corrections that are needed. In fact, I never really use the magnetic pen. I stick to the standard pen tool, and that's usually much more successful. In the Paths panel, there's a useful button where a selection can be saved as a path. It can take a long time to make a good selection of some subjects, so when you have a subject like this, you might want to save the path so that you can use it later. So in the Paths panel, at the bottom, one of the buttons is Make Work Path from Selection. Click there and a work path is automatically created. So we can have a look at it. There's the path, and if we click on the selection tool, we can see all the anchor points it's made. Now this path can be saved with the image even if the image is flattened, whereas a selection with marching ants will be deleted once the file is closed. This image can be opened again and the path will still be active. There's one more function we can do with the pen tool just to finish off. Paths can be combined with each other in different ways. So we'll draw one basic path here and another one over the top, any old how. And here with this function, have combined shapes checked, and then we go to load path as a selection, and the selection includes both the paths. Alternatively, this will work with the path tool or with the select tool. So we'll do another one, and the selection tool has a similar function. We can go here and this time we'll choose intersect shape areas. We can turn it into a selection with control return or command return, and this time the overlapping areas form our selection. I haven't found this particularly useful, but here is an example of it in practice. I'm going to draw an oval shape to make a speech bubble, turn that into a path with make work path from selection, and I'm going to add a bit more to it to make it look more like a speech bubble. Hold down the Alt key to disconnect that anchor point, up here for another one, and join up. Now if I turn that into a selection by having combined shapes, Control return, Command return, there we are, there's our speech bubble. Fill it in with a colour prior to adding the text. That's all on the pen tool. Next we'll be dealing with selection by channel.